Have you ever read Romans 1, verse 20, and wondered how somebody could actually look at nature and then be responsible for their own salvation as a result of that? Let's look at what it says. I'm going to read the Amplified Version. For ever since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power, and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through his workmanship, all his creation, the wonderful things that he has made, so that they who fail to believe and trust him are without excuse and without defense. That makes me think that there are significant lessons in nature that we should be able to discover and find out the character and nature of God and what is necessary for salvation. Since the Bible teaches that nature does reveal the character and even personality of God, then it is almost like a complementary testament. In fact, we see examples throughout the Bible where the writers point to nature as an example of what they are teaching. And this was a frequent practice of Jesus as well. I would suggest that you can study nature to a level where you can find significant lessons about God. Now, just like in Bible study, when you first start reading the Bible, you're going to find some important but fairly superficial lessons. But just like the Bible, the more you study nature, the more significant things that you're going to find about God. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering why I should be listening to this old geezer and trying to find out his take on things. Well, I've been a Bible student as well as a naturalist my entire life. I remember as a child looking at nature and catching butterflies and seeing what I could find. At the age of 12, I became a serious birder and have been one all my life. Then later, I took up nature photography with a special interest in bird photography. I've also had a special interest in the study of insects, and I have a collection of 12,000 specimens of beetles. I am also a retired emergency room physician, and my insights into the study of the human anatomy and physiology have brought me closer to God as well. As you study nature, you're going to find numerous examples that you can use for a spiritual application, and I want to give you 3 examples. The first one is a bird that I encountered on a trip to Kauai. My wife invited me to take her there for our anniversary, and I was eager to go as there were 2 birds that I really wanted to photograph. One of them was a Laysan albatross. And on the north shore of Kauai is a Kilauea lighthouse. And if you go there during the right time, say between January and April, you'll be able to see these birds that fly right up close to you. And I was able to get some good photographs. When I studied their life story, it became even more incredible to me why these birds are such an example of one of the characteristics of God. When the mother and father bird are raising the chick, they actually have been tracked by satellite to fly as far as the coast of Alaska to get their favorite food to bring back to the chick. And they will actually be gone as long as a week at a time. Now, if you or I were asked to be able to navigate from the coast of Alaska to a certain point on Kauai, That would probably be difficult, especially without instruments. But these birds do it almost routinely. The oldest albatross is known by the name of Wisdom, and she is in her 70s and still raising babies every year. How would you ladies like to have that kind of a history? One interesting thing about the babies is that once they're able to fly, they will soon leave the land where they were raised and won't return for 3 to 5 years. They wander around the open ocean, and then when they decide to start mating, they will return, often landing within a few hundred feet of where they took off. That is amazing, and a great example that God is a faithful guide. One of my favorite beetles is a tiger beetle. There are about 2,000 species of these in the world, and they are amazing predators of flies. And flies are a problem in nature if there's no control. If one pair of houseflies and all their progeny were able to raise young and none of them died at the end of the year, there would be a layer clear around the world several feet thick. So obviously we need control of that kind of a population, and tiger beetles are one of the great controls that we have. The tiger beetle can run so fast on the ground, actually outdistances the ability of the eyes and the brain to process how fast it has gone. And so every 10 or 15 feet, it'll have to stop and reorient itself, get its bearings, and then take off again. But they are so fast that, in fact, if one of them was the size of a leopard, it could run 800 miles an hour. And they have ferocious mandibles that would be able to kill a cow with a single bite. But God amazes me with his ability to design and then put together such a creature. The third example I'd like to give you is studies by Dr. Monica Gagliano down in Australia. She has been studying the intelligence of plants. And you might wonder what a plant brain looks like. I wonder that as well. You might think that it's a silly thing to even think about, that a plant would have intelligence. But she has found several things that are fairly compelling. You might remember the experiments that Pavlov used on dogs, where he would ring a bell each time he fed them, and then found that after a while, if he rang a bell, they would actually start salivating, ready to eat. There was a similar thing in plants, where she had seedlings of a bean or a pea, and she put them in a dark room, and then at different times would turn on a light from a random direction. She then noticed that the peas would grow toward the light. After a while, she would then turn on a fan before she turned the light on, and she noticed that those pea plants would actually grow toward the breeze before the light even came on. So these plants were actually anticipating that there would be light, because they remembered that light came from the direction of the breeze. She did a further experiment with the sensitive plant that you might be familiar with. These plants, when you touch them or startle them, they will fold up their leaves to protect them from being eaten by something like a cow. But what she did was she dropped the plant about a foot, and that would make the leaves close up. She did that over and over until the plant learned that it did not have to fear from being dropped a foot. She then waited another month and dropped the plant a foot again. that plant remembered that it did not have to be afraid by being dropped. However, if you touched it or disturbed it in any other way, it would still fold up. So it was fully functional, but it had learned that it was safe, and it had a memory that told it that it did not have to worry. That's amazing to think about. That leads us to a side topic. You have probably heard about forest bathing. That is a practice that started in Japan of people going out into the forest to actually calm down and for physical benefit. And they actually have done studies and found that the people who practice this have lower levels of cortisol and lower blood pressure. It's been found in a new forest that doesn't have the complexity of an old growth forest. The opposite happens, which indicates that there's something that the trees are giving off as a signal that communicates with us in some way that they are possibly in trouble. This got me to wondering if Adam and Eve could actually sensibly figure out what was wrong with the plants in the Garden of Eden by some form of communication that we have lost. And it makes me wonder that if in heaven we won't have that again. Now you might wonder what all of this information is useful for. For me, it's actually tangible evidence that the God described in the Bible is there, is personable, is trustworthy, all of the things that the author of Romans suggested. Like I mentioned before, I have been a longtime Bible student and study of nature, but I actually never put the two together until I had read a book. And it was not a book on that subject, but there was a quote in that book that I want to read to you. Before I do, let me tell you about the book. It is The Tracker by Tom Brown Jr., and I'm sure some of you have already read it. Tom Brown Jr. grew up with a Native American boy as his best friend, and the boy's grandfather was one of the last truly great trackers of his tribe. And he taught the boys all about how to track and look at the signs in nature. And Tom wrote this in his book that I thought was really profound. The first track is the end of a string. At the far end, a being is moving, a mystery, dropping a hint about itself. Every so many feet, telling you more about itself until you can almost see it, even before you come to it. The mystery reveals itself slowly, track by track, giving its genealogy early to coax you in. Further on, it will tell you the infinite details of its life and work until you know the maker of the track like a lifelong friend. I read that book a number of times because it's one of my favorites. Over time, that quote hit me that the mystery that I was most interested in was God. And there was abundant tracks all over nature that could lead me to him, lead me to understand him and appreciate him more. My wife and daughter have been doing independent mission, short-term missions for over 25 years. They have found that nature study, when introduced as part of biblical teachings, is a powerful tool. And I would encourage those of you who are pastors and teachers to incorporate that. What they often would do is my daughter would start with meetings for the children right after school, and the kids would come in and she would start with a nature lesson then go into the appropriate Bible study, she found out that over time, the adults would actually come at the same time as the kids because they didn't want to miss anything. After the kids program was over, then my wife would have meetings as well. She would talk on the same topic, so the adults actually got the same topic twice. And these kids and adults were very willing and able to follow a God that manifests himself in nature, and then had teachings from the Bible that went along with those findings. As we go along on this channel, I plan to give you many examples from nature, as well as some more ideas of how you can use them in your own teachings with your own family. I would appreciate likes and subscribes, of course. My prayer for each one of you is that, like me, you will come to see nature as a tool to reveal the mystery of God, and that you too will become a lifelong friend.